Hello, my dear friends. Welcome to the Sick Mind channel. Thank you very much for clicking on this video and taking your valuable time to listen to today's crime story. I hope you like today's story. So let's get to today's story. Today's topic is about the criminal case of a person named Cayetano Santos Godino, an Argentine criminal and mentally ill person who committed terrible acts against children. Most people know him as the first serial killer in the history of Argentina. Cayetano was born in Buenos Aires on October 31st, 1896, into a family of Italian immigrants. His family was poor and deprived, living in a humble house in one of the city's poorest neighborhoods. It's said they didn't even have a bathroom in their home. His father worked as a lighthouse keeper and unfortunately was an alcoholic. Before Cayetano's birth, his father contracted syphilis, and due to a lack of work and dire financial conditions, all the children suffered from health problems. Cayetano himself was born with issues like enteritis, and during his adolescence, his illness flared up so severely that he was near death. The father, Flor Godino, had a terrible temper and frequently beat his children with a piece of wood or a leather belt. The mother wasn't exempt from this abuse, and life was very difficult for her as well. It's also worth mentioning that Cayetano himself would anger his father. For most of his childhood, he roamed the streets until he was 5 years old and enrolled in school. However, he switched schools multiple times because he had no interest in learning. Cayetano was described as an extremely aggressive and angry child, leading to repeated expulsions from school. Many teachers and principals called him an idiotic retard because he couldn't grasp anything they taught him. He had both mental and physical challenges. For instance, he often suffered from headaches accompanied by fever, which confined him to bed for long periods. On top of that, he frequently experienced bouts of diarrhea and vomiting. Many specialists later suggested that these issues could have impacted his physical development. All these factors contributed to him never growing taller than 1.5 meters or about 5 feet. Beyond these issues, one of the biggest problems that made him unbearable at home was his bad temper and aggression. Neither his parents nor his siblings could tolerate him for a minute. When neighbors saw him on the street, they would immediately close their windows to avoid hearing the curses that came out of his mouth. From childhood, he was called Long Ears because of his large ears. As he got a little older, he learned nothing beyond writing and reading his own name. Due to his learning difficulties, he dropped out of school permanently after 3 years. In his adolescence, he began smoking and drinking alcohol. He often stole bottles of wine from homeless people found in dead-end alleys. In his free time, he enjoyed wandering in the fields, lighting fires with enthusiasm, and torturing and burning the animals he found there. On September 28, 1904, before he turned 8, he beat a 2-year-old child almost to death. Cayetano took the 2-year-old to a deserted place, beat him horribly, and left him in the grass. By chance, a police officer saw this, rescued the small child, and took both boys to the police station for their families to pick them up. Although the 2-year-old's head injuries appeared severe, they didn't realize they were dealing with an extremely dangerous criminal, and he was let go easily. A year later, he was arrested again. This time, an 18-month-old baby girl was attacked. He struck her on the head with a stone. Fortunately, the child survived. Cayetano was briefly detained for these 2 offenses, but was released very quickly despite the severity of his crimes, fallen into the trough, and he was trying to save him. A year later, he was arrested again. This time, an 18-month-old baby girl was attacked. He struck her on the head with a stone. Fortunately, the child survived. Cayetano was briefly detained for these 2 offenses, but was released very quickly despite the severity of his crimes. Far from considering the gravity of his actions, Cayetano committed his first murder on March 29, 1906. On this day, the disappearance of a 3-year-old girl named Maria was reported to the police. The police searched all the houses in the area, both occupied and abandoned, but found no trace of the girl. It wasn't until 6 years later that Maria's family learned of her fate. On April 5th of the same year, Cayetano's father took his then 9-year-old son to the police. He told the officers he could no longer handle raising the child and asked them to detain or imprison him. He claimed Cayetano was psychologically unstable and treated animals cruelly. Before going to the police, his father found many dead birds stuffed into a pillow on his son's bed at home. The strange part of the story is that Cayetano's father was himself an aggressive and violent man, yet he recognized his son's behavioral anomalies. Therefore, his father's request was accepted and he was sent to a correctional facility for delinquent teenagers. However, he was released after only 2 months. It seemed this child thirsted for violence because on September 9, 1908, he attempted to drown another 2-year-old boy in a horse stable's water trough. The child was miraculously saved thanks to the stable owner who happened to be passing by and witnessed the event. The man ran towards Cayetano, stopped him, and quickly called the police. Cayetano was detained at the police station for nearly 24 hours. There, he constantly defended himself, claiming he never intended to kill the child, but that the child had fallen into the trough and he was trying to save him. On September 15 of the same year, just 6 days after his detention, he was finally released through intervention. He then went after another child named Julio. He took the boy to an abandoned house and tried to burn his eyes with cigarette butts. However, this time, the mother of the child saw from a distance where he was taking her son, followed them, and rescued her son. Cayetano managed to escape this time. After this incident, he easily returned home, but his behavior worsened daily. He was drunk day and night and roamed the streets. This situation became too much for his parents, so they decided to send Cayetano back to the juvenile detention center. This time, he stayed there for 3 full years. During this period, he received educational classes and, with great difficulty, managed to learn to write a few words and count to 100. This was his last success in education. On December 23, 1911, after years away, he finally returned to his parental home. His parents thought the experiences he had gained there would lead to improvement in his behavior and conduct, but they were gravely mistaken. They even tried to arrange an apprenticeship for him at a local factory, but he didn't last more than a few months there. After a while, his violent behavior and habits began again. He himself recounted experiencing many headaches during that time, and these headaches made him want to harm others. On January 7, 1912, he set a building in the city center on fire. The fire department took approximately 5 to 6 hours to extinguish the blaze, indicating the immense scale of the fire. He was arrested, of course, and at the police station he said, "I set the house on fire because I wanted to see its destructive power." January 25. Murder of a 13-year-old girl named Arthur. Her body was found in an abandoned house. Police investigations led nowhere. March 7, 1912. Cayetano took a girl named Arthur to an abandoned house and set her on fire with matches and kerosene. The girl died 16 days later in the hospital. November 8, 1912. Cayetano lured a 2-year-old boy named Roberto with candy and attempted to strangle him. A passerby rescued Roberto. Cayetano was arrested but released due to insufficient evidence. November 16th through 20. 2 more attacks were reported, with the perpetrators escaping. December 3, 1912. Around 10 a.m., a man named Pascal noticed his 3-year-old son missing from his workshop. Pascal found his son in a dilapidated house. The child was bound and had been strangled with a rope tied in 13 knots. The killer had also struck the child's head with a nail and a stone. Police investigation. A teenage girl had seen the missing boy accompanied by a teenage boy with short hair and large ears. The police linked this murder to recent attacks. Cayetano was the primary suspect, but there was insufficient evidence for his arrest. Wake ceremony. Cayetano went to Pascal's house and, by turning the corpse's head, checked the area injured by the nail. This suspicious act convinced Pascal to inform the police. Arrest and confession. Police searched Cayetano's house and arrested him. A piece of newspaper with the headline, "Child Murdered," and a rope similar to the one used in Roberto's murder were found. Cayetano initially denied everything but confessed to all of the murders under interrogation pressure. Consequences and analyses. Cayetano was accused of 4 murders, 4 attempted murders, and multiple arsons. This case was unprecedented in Argentina. The case attracted the attention of criminology, strengthening the born criminal hypothesis proposed by Cesare Lombroso. Lombroso believed criminals had specific physiological traits such as large jaws, short foreheads, narrow cheeks, large ears, thick lips, and these characteristics were observed in Cayetano. Despite his young age, Cayetano was a ruthless killer without remorse. In medical examinations, in addition to large ears, Cayetano had long hands and an unnaturally large penis relative to his build. Further details from confession and investigation. Cayetano confessed that he set the house on fire to witness its destructive power. The police initially believed that Arthur's murder was committed by 2 high-ranking government officials, and their 6-month investigation had reached a dead end. After his first arrest, Cayetano claimed he found Arthur already tied up. After the November attacks, Cayetano was released again because there was insufficient evidence against him. At the scene of Roberto's murder, a rope with 13 knots was used. A teenage girl had seen Cayetano, described as a teenage boy with short hair and large ears, near the location where Roberto went missing. At Roberto's wake, Cayetano turned the corpse's head to examine a wound, a suspicious act that led to Pascal to notify the police. At Cayetano's house, a piece of newspaper with the headline, "Child Murdered," and a rope similar to the one used in Roberto's murder were found. Cayetano confessed to all the murders after interrogation. He was accused of 4 murders, 4 attempted murders, and multiple arsons. The case attracted the attention of criminology, reinforcing Cesare Lombroso's born criminal hypothesis. Cayetano possessed the physical characteristics described by Lombroso, including large ears. Despite his young age, he was a ruthless killer without remorse. In medical examinations, in addition to large ears, Cayetano had long hands and an unnaturally large penis relative to his build. During medical examinations, Cayetano had 27 stitches on his head, mostly from beatings from his father. He was found to be incapable of understanding his actions due to psychological problems. Cayetano used his innocent-looking face to gain the trust of children, whom he would then abduct, torture, and murder. He was acquitted on October 30th, 1914, before trial, and was referred to an undisclosed psychiatric treatment center. This meant he would never be free. The presence of such a sick and angry prisoner worried not only the inmates, but also the staff. This was not without reason, as Cayetano initially walked the hallways looking menacingly at other prisoners and even attacked someone later. For this reason, local authorities requested his transfer to a national prison, and so, on March 18, 1923, he was moved to a prison in the city of Ushuaia. This prison was known as the end of the world. Conditions there were extremely harsh. Cell temperatures could drop below freezing, even with heaters. The prison, opened in 1902, was intended for dangerous criminals. Cayetano's time in prison was very difficult, and most of the time he was alone. His family never visited him. The government, fearing public criticism, wanted to send him back to Italy, where he was born. However, it didn't make much difference to Cayetano, as he was not allowed visitors anyway, or rather, he was prohibited from receiving them. This meant no one could interview him, nor could he speak with anyone. In reality, all of this was a formality, as there was no one interested in talking to him. Within the prison itself, there was no one who could relate to his mindset or behavior to establish any kind of connection. He was regularly beaten or verbally abused, but ultimately, Cayetano Santos Godino died on November 15, 1944. He was only 48 years old at the time of his death. The coroner officially stated that the cause of death was intestinal bleeding. However, there are rumors that he threw 2 cats belonging to another inmate into the furnace and burned them, and as a result, they retaliated by beating him to death. Some inmates themselves claim that due to the cold weather inside the prison, it was impossible to keep any animals there, but these claims do not rule out the possibility that he was killed by another inmate, leaving the true cause of his death forever unknown. The body of Cayetano Santos Godino was buried in the prison garden. In 1947, a strange event occurred. Some individuals exhumed Cayetano's grave, taking the cross from his tomb and his remains with them. Today, the prison has been turned into a museum, and a statue of Cayetano is located in the cell where he was imprisoned.